Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 128 Crunch Time. I'm your host, Sam Godsey, and with me today, as always, is my co-host, Tanner Dizentere. How are we feeling tonight? You got your Rangers playing right now. A huge win by your Knicks. It's got to be feeling good. And the Vikings coming up on Thursday night.
I mean, what a huge week it is for me specifically. I mean, right now, defend the Garden. Teams are 3-0 at the Garden. Both had home court / home ice advantage. Rangers currently up 3-2 in game 2. Could move it to 4-0. Hard to ask for a better start than that. And on Thursday, of course, we have the NFL draft, which we talk about later in the episode. And big one for the Minnesota Vikings. So I'll be glued onto that. I know game 3 is also on Thursday, so I'll be glued to that of the Knicks 76ers series. So Thursday is going to be an absolutely crazy day, and I am so ready for it.
Yeah, absolute. We have a twofer for the people. 2 interviews. Probably going to be our longest episode. So if you make it to the end, you are a real one. But we have some NFL drafts talk with Ryan Kearney of the Roadie on the Horn podcast. And we have some NBA playoff talk with Brandon Martelli, one of Tanner's friends. So stay tuned for those. We talk about that and so much more on episode 128. We got a lot going on this episode, Tanner, but let's kick it off as we always do. Who is your winner of the episode?
Yeah, man. So my winner of the episode is going to be free chicken. Yes, you heard that correctly. Free chicken. The first instance, there are 2 instances of the crowd getting free chicken. And the first one came on April 15th. So it was a little over a week ago. Boban Marjanovic. I always mess that up. Boban Marjanovic, we all know, man of the people. He and the Rockets were playing at the Clippers, a late regular season game, one of the last in the season. And they were at LA, and the Clippers have a promotion. If at any point one team or one player on the other team misses 2 free throws in a row, then everyone in attendance gets a free Chick-fil-A sandwich. Well, Boban went to the line, and the first one he missed, and the crowd started going crazy, and that's the possibility of a free chicken sandwich. So what does he do for his next one? He immediately turned to the crowd and said, "I got you guys," and turned and missed it on purpose. And then as soon as he missed it, he points up to the crowd and being like, "Yeah." So Boban getting the crowd free chicken. Absolutely awesome. But that's not the only instance, because in the play-in game, the first play-in game between the 7 and 8 seeds in the East, it was the Heat at the 76ers. In that game, the Heat got off to a red-hot start, had a double-digit lead throughout most of the first half. And the turning point in the game was a similar situation, exactly like Boban's situation. 76ers also have that promotion. I think theirs is for nuggets, though, not a chicken sandwich. Interesting that they're different items. Anyway, they have a similar promotion. If a team misses 2 free throws in a row, everyone in attendance gets free chicken nuggets from Chick-fil-A. Well, Caleb Martin stepped to the free throw line with the Heat up 11 in about halfway through the third quarter. Heat had all the momentum. Caleb Martin misses both. Crowd goes crazy. The crowd gets into the game a little bit. A crowd that had kind of been silenced because of the 76ers' slow start. The crowd starts to get into it. The 76ers immediately turn it around, go on a 10-0 run, make it a 1-point game, and they end up winning that game to lock up the 7 seed. So
free
chicken has got the people going crazy, and it even influenced the game, directly influenced an outcome of the play-in game, which was huge for seeding, right? I mean, now Philly's playing New York, and the Jimmy Butler-less Heat, of course, have to play the Celtics. So that's huge. That's absolutely huge. And it was all because of free chicken.
Yeah, it's awesome seeing stuff going down like that. For my winner, it's going to be us, the Iowa faithful. We had some big news these past couple weeks. A couple weeks ago, Patrick McCaffrey said, "I'm packing my bags. I am out of Iowa State. See you later, Patty Mac." He's now at Butler. is a Butler Bulldog, so that'll be interesting to see how that pans out. And then today, we got the huge news that Deacon Hill is out of here. Another huge dub for the Hawkeyes. Kind of concerning. I personally don't think the staff knew this was happening because he played like a ton of first team snaps in the spring game, but I'm all here for it.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard to, because originally I thought that the staff sat down and realized that, I mean, Cade McNamara, who's clearly not ready to play yet and had a big injury last year and another big injury before that, very injury prone, very non-zero chance that he gets injured again. And the team needs to resort to a backup quarterback. And we saw how that worked with Deacon Hill. So I thought that when I first saw it, that maybe the coaching staff kind of sat him down and be like, look, this just isn't a fit. Like, maybe go somewhere, go to a group of 5 conference, or earn a starting job there. But I just don't think Power 5 football is for you, which would make total sense.
Yeah.
But as you said, it sounded like he got a lot of first team reps. So Goal Rangers, by the way, 4-2, let's go. But anyway, I still think it's possible. Maybe they said, you know what, let's give him some more first team reps as a last chance, and he sucked, and they're like, okay, maybe that's what happened. But even so, it's really confusing coaching.
Yeah,
but he's gone.
Absolutely. And Brandon Sullivan of Northwestern, their starting quarterback,
I saw that
now in the transfer portal.
Iowa in desperate need of another quarterback. See
if that pans out. Probably not. We're going to roll with Cade McNamara, probably.
But I mean, Cade McNamara probably will be the starter, even if we do bring in Sullivan. But it's just I have zero confidence, as I'm sure you do as well, that Cade McNamara will play more than 6 or 7 games. Yeah. Right? It's just the nature of his career, and it sucks. But
at least it's not Deacon Hill.
At least it's not Deacon Hill.
Finally, as the Hawkeye faithful, we got to see our girl Caitlin Clark get an absolute bag from Nike. The report came out that she is set to sign a 8-figure shoe deal with Nike, $28 million over 8 years, including a signature shoe. So that's kind of unprecedented times for WNBA. But yeah, so absolutely crazy.
So this you could say off season, but we're talking about multiple sports here. So what this winter / early spring, got rid of Brian Ferentz, got rid of Patrick McCaffrey, got rid of Deacon Hill. Women's team went to the national title. Caitlin Clark got drafted number 1 overall. She got on SNL, and now she's getting an 8-figure deal. So
yeah,
it's a pretty decent time to be a Hawkeye.
Yeah,
as long as you didn't watch the men's team.
Yeah, exactly.
This season.
And did you by chance see these other offers that other shoe companies were?
Oh God, no.
So Under Armour $16 million for 4 years. Adidas $6 million for 4 years. And then Puma.
Did you say $6 million for 4 years?
$6 million
Adidas,
for 4 years.
Get out of here with that offer. What is that?
And then Puma showed interest but walked away when the bidding would start at $3 million.
Interesting. What was the one that was Under Armour?
Under Armour was 16 for 4.
Higher average annual value of $4 million a year compared to slightly less that in Nike. Yeah. But I guess you wanted the long term, which fair. One injury away from.
If you're Puma, why are you not throwing in an absolute bag?
She's the she's the type of athlete that could totally make your brand a premier brand in sports and not a secondary brand.
Yeah, it's crazy. But Adidas, Under Armour, and Puma could be losers, but who is your loser of the episode?
Yeah, man. So my loser, this has to be, just an all-time umpire moment. We all talk about how bad officiating is in every single sport. And it's true because, and especially with the replays and all that we have now, we really nitpick. But this one is absolutely wild. So in the Yankees-A's game on Monday, Aaron Boone, it was 5 pitches in. Aaron Boone, the manager of the Yankees, was I don't even know what the initial grievance was, but he was complaining to the ump a little bit. 5 pitches in, I believe it was the second batter, might have still been the first batter, and you can hear the mic on the A's broadcast. The mic picked it up loud and clear, and he said something like, "Just I don't want to hear it anymore. Stop talking. One more word, and you're out." And clearly, Aaron Boone got the message because he turned around, he put his hands up, and he said, "Okay." He closed his mouth. And sure enough, a couple seconds later, without Aaron Boone opening his mouth, he gets rung. He goes ballistic. I didn't say a thing. And it turns out when you watch the replay, because of course they have video, it was a fan who was sitting right above the Yankees dugout who yelled after.
Yeah.
I don't even believe I said the umpire's name, but official loser, Hunter Wendelstedt, is the loser. He told Boone to basically shut up, and then the fan turned around, yelled one more thing. He thought it was Boone, and he ejected him. So officially, Aaron Boone got ejected when he followed everything the ump said and stopped talking immediately after he told him to. A wild scene. The Yankees ended up losing the game. I mean, I think specifically in baseball, it's when your manager gets ejected, it's really not that big a deal from a game-to-game basis. It's just like, obviously, you don't want your manager to get ejected.
Yeah.
But it gives an all-time moment for us fans, like just like an all-time, like, come on, bro, like moment for us fans. It's really annoying to see when refs or umps, announce themselves in games like this. But yeah, got ejected for keeping quiet, which is what the ump told him exactly to do. Yeah,
and he made a comment about it today. I heard something come from far end of the dugout, had nothing to do with his area, but he's the manager of the Yankees, so he's the one that had to go.
Yeah, and because I'm pretty confident that he, shortly after he rung him, he realized it wasn't Boone who said it.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he thought it was an assistant, as the bench coach, one of the base coaches, someone in the dugout. Because also when the mic picked him up, you clearly heard him say, like, Boone said, "I didn't say anything." He said, "I don't care who said it. You're gone." Yeah. Like, which fair. I think that's a fair ring. If it was a bench coach, fair. What I think his statement is I told you to shut up. You didn't get your coaches in line. I'm ringing you. I think that's okay. Not ideal, but okay. But the fan is just what's so brutal about this.
Yeah,
like it was a fan that got him ejected. That's crazy.
And you have other umps.
Yeah, I know.
Why wouldn't you? Why? But yeah, absolutely hilarious. Hunter Wendelstedt is definitely a loser for this episode. There's a couple that could be nominated for loser of the episode. I mean, the Jokic brothers last night just absolutely knocked a Lakers fan out. Is now being investigated. Seems like they're following in the Porter family footsteps. Then we got Taylor Swift and her terrible album.
Oh man.
And then but the guys I'm gonna nominate, probably the biggest loser talk, Joel Embiid and LeBron James. Did you happen to catch any of these guys post game after last night's games?
I saw AD's.
So Joel Embiid was getting interviewed as Locker. And not even kidding, it's like this.
Oh yes, Joel. For some reason, when you said Joel Embiid in my mind, I was thinking,
I honestly
Nikola Jokic.
Honestly, I didn't even hear what he said. To me, I know he cussed a couple times, but he said this is absolute bullshit. Refs bullshit. But
unacceptable or something like that.
And then LeBron sits down, takes a question, and is like, "It's clear as day D'Angelo Russell got hit in the face." Which no arguments. What the F is there a replay center for if they aren't gonna review it? And then he got up and left. Like, Brian, you're like one of the best players to ever play the game. You blew a 20-point lead, my bro. Like, you can blame refs. I agree. They missed some calls late. but you were up by 20 and you blew it. You blew it.
Yeah, it's like that should have been called. Obviously, it was in a key moment, but the refs didn't blow a 20-point lead. Similar with the Sixers. Like,
Yeah.
I understand that you think there was a foul, whatever. I know, obviously, I'm a Knicks fan, so take this with a grain of salt if you want. But like, I honestly don't think the Sixers got screwed at all. There was a play under 4 minutes left where Kyle Lowry basically molested Dante DiVincenzo in the lane. They called a foul, and similar to the Lakers, they reviewed it and somehow took it off when it was clear as day it was a foul. Tyrese Maxey two-hand shoved Josh Hart right before the play that's going viral with the Brunson tug. That didn't get called. So I mean, it was a physical game, and they let him play physical all game long. And but what I tell you, the refs did not do is the refs did not let Isaiah Hartenstein get a rebound after the Dante DiVincenzo miss. What the refs did not do was have Kyle Lowry miss a key free throw to go up 6. What the refs did not do was the refs did not smoke a layup going to the hole by Tyrese Maxey. The refs did not take the 3 attempt to tie the game after the buzzer sounded. Yeah. That was not the refs' fault. That was the 76ers absolutely choking.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was, big time loser talk coming from around the NBA.
Yeah, absolutely. Bunch of losers highlighted by Joel Embiid and LeBron James. But that wraps it up for winners and losers. We have our first interview with Ryan Kearney of Rody on the Horn podcast. We're going to break down some NFL draft. We're going to talk about this elite quarterback class, this elite wide receivers. He's going to let us know about some sleepers, some guys you need to look out for on draft night. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be back after.
Great interview.
So we have a special guest on the pod from the Rody on the Horn podcast for some draft talk. We got Ryan Kearney. Ryan, how are you doing tonight?
Dude, I am fired up. Thanks so much for having me, guys. Fired up. NFL draft week, one of my favorite weeks of the year. I know Sam, you can attest. Like, I just love grinding these NFL draft prospects. I don't know what it is, but it's always one of my favorite events of the year. So fired up to be here, and let's get into it.
Yeah, man. So I know you do kind of a mock draft. Is it mock draft or big board? Are you more of a big board? Because I feel like it's super hard scouting all these guys and not being a part of the front office, because you could think one guy is a good fit, but they're thinking, say, offensive player is a great fit, but then they draft a defensive guy. So is yours more of a big board?
Yeah, I typically do it more on my own rankings, more so than a mock draft. Usually I'll fire up, 1 or 2 mock drafts, but I feel like with trades and everything that happens on draft day, it's sometimes hard to kind of map it out more in a mock draft format. So usually I just, call it a big board, do my overall rankings, knowing that, the Jacksonville Jaguars are just going to take some athletic edge rusher no matter what, and I can just make my rankings how I would have it. So, I usually do it just as like a big board, which, just that way I can kind of have my own rankings to look back upon.
Yeah. So draft night is Thursday. Huge night. A loaded quarterback and wide receiver class.
Yeah.
So that's where we're gonna start it off, man. If you're the Bears, are you taking Caleb Williams 1-1? No ifs, ands, or buts?
Yeah, I think it has to be Caleb Williams at this point in time. Just the most talented quarterback, the most well-rounded. Started his career at Oklahoma. 5-star recruit coming in, took over for Spencer Rattler about halfway through, followed Lincoln Riley over to USC, and definitely had a lot of success. Obviously won the Heisman Trophy a year ago. Didn't necessarily have as overall of team success. The UFC defense was pretty tough this past year, especially. I know they fired their defensive coordinator after this year, but Williams was doing his thing. Crazy mobility, crazy arm strength, just raw ability to extend plays and make things happen with his legs, and then can just change games with his arm strength and speed as well. He has some freaky film, like you see some of the arm ankles that he throws at, or making throws on the run, just chucking them deep. He was ready to go from the moment he took over at Oklahoma, which was mid-game against Texas, Red River rivalry, led a comeback win. So really since the start of Williams' time in college, He's kind of had this billing as this, next generational prospect. And I honestly feel like he lived up to it enough to where it is kind of that home run decision. It's got to be Williams at one for the Bears. No questions asked.
I tell you, when I think of Caleb Williams on Oklahoma, I always remember the play against Kansas where it was a 4th down, his running back got stopped, and he ripped the ball out of his running back's arms and ran it for a 1st down himself. But I think I tend to agree on the Caleb Williams. You just got to do it. You got to take him 1-1 and push forward. But I kind of want to get into the other quarterbacks because there's a lot. I mean, you can take a look at the draft odds. Who's going second? One week it's this guy who's the favorite. Then the odds move as they always do right before the draft, and no one really knows who's picking who. But who do you have going at 2 to the Commanders, possibly 3 to the Patriots? Do you see a trade in there? And of course, you have the Vikings looming at 11. Are they trusting Sam Darnold? How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, great question. I do think at the end of the day, the Commanders will take a quarterback at 2. I know you mentioned the Vikings. That's a prime candidate to trade up. The New York Giants, for sure, a prime candidate to trade up. But I feel like with the Commanders situation, they have Marcus Mariota, but I feel like they need kind of that long-term quarterback. Didn't really work out with Sam Howell. Obviously, they traded him this offseason. You have some decent pieces there. I like Terry McLaurin. I like Jahan Dotson. But, I still think that they're kind of, changing course, changing direction a little bit this year. And for me, my QB2 is Jaden Daniels from LSU. The other Heisman winning quarterback in this draft who won it this past year after transferring over from Arizona State 2 years ago. But, really took a big stride up this year at LSU, had some incredible receivers on the outside with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, who will probably go in the 1st round this year as well. But great mobility. I mean, he rushed for over 1,000 yards, which is obviously incredible stuff for Daniels. I think some people are concerned about the frame. He's a little bit thinner. You have questions about his, injury. He kind of has that Josh Allen mindset where sometimes he takes some hits and you're like, oh shit, this guy's kind of going crazy right now. But I think there's still a lot to like with Daniels, good arm strength as well. And, I think the fact that he's had so much experience in college, he started 55 games, he started since his freshman year at Arizona State. Like, this guy's ready to step in, be an NFL quarterback week 1, which I don't know if I could say that for certainty with JJ McCarthy or even a Drake May, who only started for about 2 years. I think I have a lot of confidence in Daniels, just given the resume he's had in college, doing it in the SEC against the highest levels. So I think I would go Daniels at 2. I know you mentioned the betting odds. I know JJ McCarthy's really kind of rising up here late. We did see some similar things with Will Levis in recent years. So It could be a smoke. You can't 100% trust the betting odds. Typically, it's a good metric to look at, but not 100% certainty. So I think with all that we've seen this week, I personally would just tend to go with Jaden Daniels at 2 and move on from there.
Now, one quick question. Does the freaky elbow play into that at all? Have you seen that picture where his elbow... What is going on with that? That is really creepy.
Yeah, it is really creepy. It looks like his elbow has its own elbow. Like, it's like sticking out like so far. And it was like just like a graphic. Like, people were just like, oh, Jaden Daniels, like we had his pro day today, and it was like, what the hell is up with this guy's elbow? Like, it just kind of came up out of nowhere. But
exactly.
I don't know if if there was an elbow injury attached, like say he had some kind of similar injury history to a Michael Penix in this draft where, he's just been banged up his whole college career, I would be more concerned with it, but he's been durable in his career. Like I said, I think I would be more concerned about kind of his mindset. You got to teach this guy to slide. For as much as you're going to value him as a runner, you got to make sure he's not taking, these big bone crushing hits. And especially in a team like Washington, which is certainly not known for a great offensive line, he's going to take hits. So I think it's more of just your coaching staff saying, hey, Jaden, we made an investment in you. We want you on the field. We want you healthy. I think that's more so my concern with Daniels than, the freaky elbow, which definitely looks weird, but I feel like I could get by with that.
And speaking of Washington, I mean, do they have a track record of athletic quarterbacks falling off due to injury?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe a few.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned this guy, a guy that had a hell of a career, a wild career in Michael Penix Jr. Started out at Indiana, moved on to Washington, and took over from there. I know a lot of draft boards I've seen aren't very high on him. So what are those aspects of his game? Is it purely health? Because he's torn his ACL. Is it that's what's affecting his draft stock, or is it on his field play, or where do you see the concerns with that guy?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think when you just watch Penix, especially this past year, another situation where he had some really good wide receivers. Romo Dunze is going to pick very high this year. So, Penix was very comfortable just saying, yeah, I'm chucking it up. My receiver's better than yours, and he's going to come down and make the plays. So there's a lot of really good film with Penix. There is a lot to like. But I do think the concerns, why is this guy not a home run top 5 pick? Like you said, the injury history, he's torn his ACL multiple times. He's had multiple shoulder surgeries. So because of that, he's just faced a lot of adversity, which can kind of vote for him. I think that Michael Penix has been outspoken. He's like, why is this counting against me? I've gone through this adversity. I know I'm more adept to step into an NFL system with that. But I know the medicals obviously have a play into it for sure. But I think there is some on-field concerns too still with Penix, more so than just the injuries. I mean, did have some interception issues, more so I would say early in his career, but did throw 11 picks this past year. So I think, decision making on the field is something you want to kind of, rein in check a little bit. And even the accuracy. I think he hasn't been necessarily as accurate of a passer as a lot of these others, at least when you just look at completion percentage. And, a lot of these guys are in the, 65, 66% range where, Michael Penix is more closer to 63%. So I think that's something that, say it's a third down and, your guy kind of sails a ball, crushes, ends a drive. You're kind of like, oh shit, that obviously isn't ideal. So I think there are some on-field concerns that are still existent with Penix, more so than just the injuries as a reason why he isn't, a lock to go as early as he is. I still think he's a first-round pick. I still think there's enough quarterbacks that need him, need a guy next year, or have maybe kind of a transfer guy like the Vikings, for example, with Sam Darnold. Maybe you got him for a year, but you kind of want to transition. So I think that there's going to be a team that takes a shot on Penix in round 1. But I think there are things, with the accuracy, with the interceptions, in addition to the injuries that have impacted his draft stock.
With Penix, I'm always curious because, the last time we saw him on a field, he did not play well, right? He just didn't play well. If Washington lost that game against Texas, where their defense did quite possibly everything to sell that game in the fourth quarter, when Washington had a multiple touchdown lead in the fourth quarter, I wonder if our thought about him would change, because the last time we saw him on a football field against Texas, he was unbelievable. He looked like he was the best quarterback in college football at that moment. So that's always something I've thought about. But I think your concerns definitely are valid and definitely showed up in that game. When he played an NFL caliber defense, he was a little bit inaccurate. Timing was off. All of that manifested itself in a blowout loss to Michigan. But Michael Penix kind of is a good segue to that second tier of quarterback, namely Bo Nix, right? A name that we've seen flown around. Do you have him at a first round grade, or where do you see Bo Nix going?
Yeah, I do think he's a late first guy, and I think a lot of times quarterbacks benefit from their positional value. This is not breaking news, but a lot of teams will trade into the back half of the first round to grab their quarterback so that they can have a fifth-year option with their contract. If they take him, wait until the second round to take him, you don't always have the ability to exercise that. Now, teams have been screwed over with that. The Giants with Daniel Jones, they didn't pick it up. They paid him all this money. Yeah, there's been outliers for sure, but I think there is an attractive option where a team could look at, say, the end of round 1 and say, yeah, Bo Nix is still there. We need a guy in our system, that we can take over. And given his experience in college, he's pretty much the only quarterback in the class that has somehow played more than Jaden Daniels with LSU, because he started since his freshman year at Auburn before going to Oregon for these past 2. So I think he's kind of like a fun quarterback. I don't know if you'd want him as your quarterback, but he can extend plays. He can make plays with his legs. He can make plays with his arm. Does have a little bit of tendency to turn balls over too, which or take big sacks. But I thought he improved upon that this year. Only had 3 interceptions this past year at Oregon, and had a good receiver class. Troy Franklin will be a guy that we'll see picked probably in round 2, maybe late round 1. So had some good receivers there, but nevertheless, I think that Nix is kind of ready to be an NFL guy. I think there would be a team that could take a shot at him at the end of round 1.
Nix has always been, it's been so hard for me to evaluate. Not that I'm any sort of NFL talent evaluator, but when I just watch him play, he steps into these throws and his numbers look great, but you look at just the eye test, it's like his wide receivers are so open. On every play, they're always so open. So I felt like it's really hard to get a read on him.
Yeah, last year in the Pac-12, the defenses didn't
right
go out for us.
Yeah, so everyone knows this is a loaded quarterback class. One guy that seemed to be kind of the second overall for majority of the college football season was Drake May, and now it seems not a lot of people are talking him in that same tier as Jane Daniels and Caleb Williams. So what happened? Walk us through that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I still think that Drake May is going to be certainly a top 10 pick, has a good chance to go top 5 as well. But you're right. Seeing like JJ McCarthy jump him in a lot of rankings or betting odds, for example, is definitely intriguing. And I think with May, like, I don't necessarily see like this super high end upside where this guy could suddenly turn into, an elite level quarterback like an Aaron Rodgers, like a Patrick Mahomes. But I also think that he has a low floor, like a high floor, so where, he could step in and he's going to be able to execute and operate an offense. I think, like when you think of what Jimmy Garoppolo did. Now, injuries obviously have tainted our reputation of Jimmy Garoppolo, but say his early years when he was even with New England and he just kind of was able to come in, execute a system, make some things happen. I think May is a good athlete. He can run a little bit, doesn't turn the ball over a lot, doesn't take a ton of sacks, takes a fair amount of deep shots to where you're like, okay, he has a deep ball, he has some deep accuracy, but doesn't necessarily have these super wow end moments where you're like, oh, this guy is a franchise changer. He's going to elevate the level of everybody around him and take over. And he was just a 2-year starter at North Carolina, so there's still some untapped potential where he could have some success. But I think where you run into maybe a little hesitation and concern is if he does go, say, top 5, he's probably not going to this, super elite playoff contender unless someone trades up for him, like, say, a Minnesota Vikings, for example. But, I think that there just isn't necessarily as many wow factors with May as others, which could help his value if he slips a little bit and goes to a little bit more competent team. But, if, say, the Commanders take that shot at him in a 2, I'm not so sure this guy turns into some all-pro, right off the bat or even within his rookie contract.
Yeah, I think they might be a little hesitant drafting a UNC quarterback, seeing
Sure.
how Howell panned out.
Totally. Yeah, it's a real thing for sure.
But Tanner, I'm sure you got questions about who your Vikings quarterback could be.
So as we get down to it and wrap up the quarterback talk, I want to know. I mean, obviously being a Vikings fan, a lot riding on this draft. Who goes where? Just simple as that. Which quarterbacks go where? And of course, I really want to know who you got the Vikings taking. Yeah, and if they do trade up, or if that's something that you mock.
I certainly think that the Vikings will trade up, just given the fact that trade they made a couple weeks ago with the Browns to get that pick at 23, or it was the Browns pick essentially, to get that extra second round pick. I think they want to make a move, and maybe the team they would want to jump would be the New York Giants at pick 6. Maybe moving up to say 4 with Arizona or 5 with the LA Chargers. I think that would probably be a more realistic spot for the Vikings to trade up for than maybe even with Washington or New England, who are other teams I think need quarterbacks. So I think Caleb Williams, we know he's probably going 1. Number 2, there's a very interesting with what Washington's doing. I think, like I said, following the betting lines, it seems like McCarthy is a solid option, but I think Jaden Daniels still, like, I would probably ride that out and say Daniels goes to Washington. And then that brings us to New England at 3. Do they end up taking a quarterback? I think that could be a Drake May slot. And honestly, have us go quarterback 1, 2, 3. And then maybe that's where the Vikings come in and take JJ McCarthy from Michigan. And I think that for the Vikings, McCarthy would be one of the better landing spots he could go to because he could sit behind Sam Darnold, a veteran who has been a high, first round pick and has had starting experience in different offenses and has Justin Jefferson out there as well. Like, he's walking into a team that, he has a one-on-one advantage anytime he wants it. So I think they wouldn't have to pressure McCarthy to start week 1 with Darnold already in the room. So I think that McCarthy would be a solid fit for the Vikings if they do end up making that trade up to 4 or 5 and jumping the Giants, who may be having quarterback on the horizon given some of Daniel Jones' struggles.
No doubt. I mean, I selfishly think, and I guess it's not very much a hot take, but a team like Minnesota has to be a rookie quarterback's dream with the weapons. I mean, not only outside with Jefferson and Jordan Addison, of course, Hawkinson. I mean, he did get injured, but he's coming back. You got elite tackles on the end, and Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw. Interior line not as good as the tackles, but and then of course you bring in Aaron Jones from Green Bay, who had a really productive second half last year for Green Bay. So I mean, it seems like the offense is really set to take off, and it would be a rookie quarterback stream. Not to mention Sam Darnold, so there's no pressure to start right away too. So all of that seems to be a perfect storm to me. You got anything else on quarterback, Sam?
Yeah. So I don't know what's the hype around JJ McCarthy. Obviously, we saw him lead Michigan to a 15-0 season. But every game I watched of theirs, it seemed he handed the ball off 70% of the snaps. Obviously, you've really dissected the tape on him. why is this dude being talked about as second overall pick in what seems to be a loaded quarterback class?
Yeah, it's a great point. I think all throughout the season, I was among the same boat as you. Was like, is JJ McCarthy really that good? And now for him to have hype as the second overall pick is definitely pretty crazy. But I think there's once you start to dive in, there are things to like, and you're kind of pinching yourself, like, all right, I guess I'm forcing myself into this argument that McCarthy could be good, because you're right. A lot of it is just this structure around him. He's got a great O line. He was handing the ball off to Blake Corum, looking good. It's easy to do that, but high completion percentage. Has a decent ability to throw deep as well. I think that's definitely an important factor. Did not turn the ball over very much at all. Only 11 career interceptions in his 2 years as a starter. Didn't take a ton of sacks. Did have some, good offensive line in front of him, of course. But, I think it's just a situation where it's like he just kind of executed the task in front of him, which, his team saw his winning ability. And I don't really value quarterback wins all that much. There's been plenty of quarterbacks that have won in college that hasn't translated to the NFL. I think you need more than that. But, I think there are some kind of, projection based models that would say, all right, McCarthy is a younger player. He doesn't have a lot of negative plays. We can kind of work around it. And if we can continue to develop him, especially in terms of the deep ball, because he's a pretty accurate passer. He's one of the more accurate passers in this entire class. If we're really being honest, he throws a nice ball, but I think his ability to, read the pass rush, be able to improve the protection at the line of scrimmage, not something he was asked to do in college a lot. So I really think he needs a situation where he does not have to be forced into that week one starting role. And like you said, Tanner, like the Vikings has got to be like the dream spot for a rookie quarterback to say, all right, I don't have to go play for the Denver Broncos or the Las Vegas Raiders right now. I have a little bit of structure around me. And especially when you think about that Vikings offense, it was so heavily built on play action when they had Kirk Cousins. Like they were really protecting him, to have success, and they were able to get the ball out quick. So I think that kind of, that rhythm passer mold, I think that's something that McCarthy would, really excel in. But I feel like for me, like the only team I've been able to talk myself into is the Vikings, because these other teams that need quarterbacks, I'm kind of like, man, I just don't see McCarthy, being able to have a ton of success. If he's asked to, hey, you're the guy now. I know you came from Michigan, this undefeated team. You were a big part of it, but we need you to be our Patrick Mahomes, our stud quarterback. We're counting on you to throw the ball 40 times a game. I'm just not so sure that he could excel in that type of a game. But, sitting behind Darnold, I could see him developing into a solid starter just based on some of the projection, but he's going to need some help and he's going to need some coaching. I don't think he can do it right away day one.
Full transparency. I was just like you. I was like, no, JJ McCarthy, come on. Then Kirk Cousins goes to Atlanta. Minnesota doesn't have a quarterback. There a lot of mocks have them taking JJ McCarthy. As soon as that happened, generational talent, winner, just all of that stuff, right? Immediately.
And NFL people buy into it. Yeah, I'm totally under the same mindset as you, Sam. Like, are we really talking ourselves into this guy? And yeah, they are. It's a lot of projection based, but I think that's a lot of the factors of what people see in McCarthy that have caused him to rise as much as he has.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to be one of the more interesting quarterback storylines. So we kind of hit on the big names in this draft. I know you watch a lot of film on all quarterbacks. So who is a guy at the quarterback position that is getting overlooked in this draft?
Yeah, I think there's two for me, and two for different reasons. I think the one guy, there's kind of those six quarterbacks that we hit on with Williams, Daniels, May, Nix, Penix, McCarthy. Those are kind of the home run guys. But there is a little bit of a tier after that of two guys that I like, and one of them is Jordan Travis. And I think it's easy to forget about Jordan Travis because of how last season ended with Florida State. This guy had a great season. He was online to lead an undefeated Florida State ACC championship team into the college football playoff and give, a legit run for the national title. And then he got injured in a meaningless game against a terrible team and canceled their whole season. They didn't make the playoffs. Everyone, wrote him off. Sorry, Florida State. Thanks for coming out. But I think it's easy to forget how good Jordan Travis was last year. I think he's a really good mobile athlete. Not necessarily the most accurate passer, but can take some deep shots. Had some good wide receivers on the outside. Keon Coleman's one of them. He's going to get picked in this draft as well. But just a really good athlete. He can run the ball well. Kind of like maybe like a poor man's Bo Nix, which is kind of a risky thing to say because he's not like Bo Nix is the richest guy in the world.
Yeah.
Right? But I think there is some things to like with Jordan Travis, and if he's available on say round 3, 4, 5, I think maybe in a few years we're looking back it's like this guy's kind of like Dak Prescott, where we're like this guy's kind of a long-term starter that we just kind of forgot about in a loaded quarterback class. That Prescott was a 4th round pick, and now here he is. He's been a starter for as long as he has entered the league for. So I think Jordan Travis is one, and then the guy right behind him for me in kind of that next tier quarterback. So Spencer Rattler from South Carolina started his career at Oklahoma. Caleb Williams came in, kind of took his job job a little bit. Rattler dealt with some interception issues and turnover problems at Oklahoma, goes over to South Carolina, started there the last 2 years, and has some good ability. He's a really accurate passer, throws a pretty ball, can throw the ball on the run a little bit, can move a little bit, not necessarily as good of an athlete as, say, a Jaden Daniels in this class, but definitely offers you some high upside. I think really just the big thing is, he's had some issues with interceptions in his career. He's got among the highest interception rate in this draft class. So there's some things to work on, but going back to when he entered college football, he was one of the highest touted prospects. This guy's a lock to go first round. He's kind of following in the footsteps of Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. You're kind of thinking, oh, he and Lincoln Riley are just going to kind of take over, and maybe things haven't materialized as much as they have, but a very interesting developmental prospect that, who knows, in a few years we might be watching a Thursday night football game, a quarterback gets injured, here comes Spencer Rattler tearing it up, and I wouldn't necessarily be too shocked to see him, just because he has the talent, has the raw talent to be a NFL starting quarterback, which you got to tame the decision making and put him in the right system, of course, but the potential is there where a mid-round pick would be a really smart one for Rattler.
Yeah, those are two names I honestly completely forgot about. It just shows you how deep this quarterback class is.
That's hilarious that you just said that, because immediately in my mind I'm thinking Jaguars, Titans, Thursday night football, Trevor Lawrence limps through the tunnel, and here comes Spencer Rattler to finish the game. That's awesome. I can totally see
throws
that.
like a dime touch. Like, he had that game, I think it was against might have been Georgia. Like, he had some games where he just tore up some really quality defense. Clemson, I remember at the end of one year, he just absolutely lit him up, and you're like, whoa, like, you see the flashes of Rattler and you're like, this guy, how is he not like an elite quarterback? And then you watch a couple other of his games and you're like, oh, you see some terrible sacks, terrible picks, and you're like, man, if we can just channel the upside here with Rattler, he could be really good.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the Clemson game. Also, that year they beat Tennessee. Effectively ended Tennessee's season. Of course, then Hooker did get injured, so that also ended Tennessee's season. But that South Carolina loss was the big one. But do you have any more on quarterbacks, man? Are we ready to move to wide receivers?
Yeah. Another great class, highlighted by the big three: Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze. So it seems that Marvin Harrison Jr. is kind of the best of those three.
I'd agree.
With him, does not participating in the combine and pro days concern, does that give you a red flag at all? Or is it like, watch my film, because I'm facing guys in not a game situation? What are kind of your thoughts on that? Because we've had some top talent this year and not participate in either.
Yeah, I think Harrison just kind of saw the writing on the wall. He's like, I'm the number one receiver. I don't need to force anything. I don't need to risk an injury here. It is like you said, there's enough tape out there. Even from his first game, I believe he had 3 touchdowns, for Ohio State when he kind of blew up onto the scene. He was following some studs, obviously, with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson and all these great receivers that Ohio State has churned out that, Harrison had to kind of wait his turn. Jackson Smith and Jigba is another name that has come out from Ohio State recently. But, he's really established himself as the best receiver in college football. I don't think there's any question about that. 31 touchdowns basically in 3 years of playing for Ohio State. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, he just finishes in the end zone, and he does it in different ways. He can win those one-on-one contested catches. He can run a little drag route over the middle and make some things happen after the catch. Really pleasant route runner. Brian Hartline's the wide receiver coach at Ohio State, and mentioned all those studs that they've put out. He's done a hell of a job there recruiting and developing talent. So I'm not concerned at all. I think Harrison is the number one wide receiver in this class, and I think when you're that good, there's nothing really much more to show. Would it be nice to see a 40 time? Yeah, it would be, but I think he's going to step in, and I think my comp for him is more like a DeAndre Hopkins type mold, where he can kind of do it all. When you think about young DeAndre Hopkins coming in with the Houston Texans, like just kind of be that number one X receiver on the outside and can kind of do it all for you. And I think Harrison walks in as kind of that mold.
Yeah, so you got Marvin Harrison number one. I think we both agree on that. I mean, it happens every year, mostly in the quarterback position, but someone is like the number one prospect all year long, and then someone kind of comes out of nowhere, and then we have this debate. I think it's pretty clear Marvin Harrison. I think you'd agree. So Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, and even some of the guys at the end of the first round, it looks like Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, all these guys. How do you see those playing out? Like, what teams? What is Neighbors a top 10 pick? Probably. Is Odunze a top 10 pick?
Yeah, I like both of them. I definitely agree that Odunze and Neighbors are kind of that next two in line. I mean, incredibly productive. Odunze was dominant this year at Washington, and Neighbors doing it obviously in the SEC. I like Neighbors a lot going into this past year, his senior year, but I was kind of like thinking, all right, maybe like a late first. A lot to like out of him at LSU, and then just absolutely dominated this year. He and Jane Daniels. So I think you're kind of splitting hairs. You really can't go wrong with either. Me personally, I have Rome Odunze as wide receiver 2 in this draft. A little bit bigger size. It's easy to forget. He's actually slightly bigger than Marvin Harrison Jr., which I think sometimes people can kind of forget about with Odunze. But really dominant this year. Absolutely lit it up with Michael Penix at 13 touchdowns and over 1,600 yards. Just absolutely dominant and was just a one-on-one nightmare for anybody he came in contact with. So I really like Neighbors. I really like Odunze as wide receiver 2. I think he's a top 10 pick. And same thing with Neighbors. Super explosive, makes things happen after the catch, can be a deep threat, really good route runner. Just a little bit smaller, 6', 200. So that's really the only reason. I think size is, an interesting thing to look at. It's kind of like a metric where it's like a tiebreaker for me, where it's like, all right, if you got it, great. If not, I'm still kind of going best available. And for me, Odunze and Neighbors are so tight that I just give Odunze the slight nod just due to, a slightly bigger frame.
Interesting. I feel like there's been a lot of Neighbors wide receiver 2 love. So
yeah. I've seen that a lot too.
What teams are you looking at, right? In the middle there, the Giants are an interesting team. They could definitely use wide receiver help. What do they do at quarterback? Who knows? The Chargers seems like they might be looking for O-line, maybe trade out. What teams in that top 10 or even Arizona sitting at 4, right? Seems like Marvin Harrison would be a great fit there. How do you see all of that playing out?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be interesting with those picks 4 and 5, Arizona and the Chargers. Seeing how the quarterbacks kind of shake out 1, 2, 3. Is there a team like Minnesota or Denver or the Raiders that want to jump up and take one of those spots ahead of time? If Arizona could easily sit at 4 and take Marvin Harrison, the Chargers could easily sit at 5 and take Rome Odunze. I think that's definitely something that we could see, for sure happen. But I think a lot of it's just going to kind of be dictated by how this quarterback class kind of shakes out with, some of those big names we mentioned. But other teams in the top 10, I think will need receivers. The Titans could definitely consider it at pick 7. Obviously, they took Traylon Burks a couple years ago in the first round, traded him for AJ Brown. Hasn't really worked out as well as they'd hoped. Probably an understatement there. But and then I think the Chicago Bears at 9, assuming they take Caleb Williams at 1. I think that's pretty much a lock. They're going to need to continue to add receiver help. And I know they went out and got Keenan Allen this offseason, but also lost Darnell Mooney. So I think you have DJ Moore, you have Keenan Allen, but if you can run a little bit more 11 personnel, have 3 stud wide receivers on the field, I think the Bears kind of open things up a little bit and spread the ball out a little bit more, could help them out as well. So I think there's a handful of teams in the top 10 that need receivers, that could target, those kind of 3 big names in the first.
Yeah, absolutely. So when looking at these guys, you obviously mentioned Rome Odunze. A lot of people are high on him. How much do you look at the defense? Like, because Malik Neighbors is going up against Bama, Georgia, even Florida. And then you have Rome Odunze going up against USC, who is one of the worst defenses.
For
sure. Do you place an emphasis on that on your big board, or is it like this dude just a different breed? He'd do this at any level.
Yeah, no, I think you can't ignore it. And obviously the SEC it's kind of like the closest thing we have to the NFL. It's kind of that next step where, if you have a guy who's doing it in the SEC, it just gives you a lot more confidence that he can do it in the NFL, obviously. And I think it does take effect. I think more so, though, I would look at that for a guy like Troy Franklin from Oregon, who had a really good year, maybe looking at more of like an end of the first round wide receiver. I think with Rome Odunze, he was just so dominant that I think it's hard to just ignore it, no matter who the production is coming up against. Just the fact that he and Penix had just such an electric chemistry, and seemed like anytime he was either wide open or making it a contested catch or making things happen after the catch on a short route. So I think he's just kind of a complete receiver that just, what he put on display this past year was just so dominant that no matter who it was against, I think you can't ignore the production that Odunze put out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think I got one more wide receiver question. It was a couple names I mentioned earlier. I think widely regarded as like that next round of wide receiver, both from Texas, actually, A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy. Do you got first round grades on them? Do you think they're going end first round? And anyone else you want to throw in there as a potential first round pick from the wide receiver position?
Yeah, absolutely. I do have first round grades on both those Texas guys. I like Mitchell just slightly more than Worthy. Obviously, you got the incredible 4.21 blazing fast time with Worthy. You know, he was a 4-star recruit coming in, started as a freshman at Texas and was very productive too. Like, I don't think this guy is quite like, you know, I think people have PTSD from John Ross when he got picked from a fast 40 time from Washington. And then, you know, and whenever was healthy in the NFL, never really could put it together. But I think Worthy's put out some pretty good tape. And I think he will go at the end of round one. But the one guy I actually have above both Mitchell and Worthy still is Brian Thomas, another wide receiver from LSU. You know, he and Malik Neighbors just absolutely tore up the SEC this year with Jaden Daniels throwing him the football. And Thomas, it's easy to forget, he ran a faster 40 than AD Mitchell did himself at 4.33. Really good size, you know, just a little bit smaller than Marvin Harrison and Odunze. He's basically 6'3", 209. So I think Brian Thomas is going to be even a better player in the NFL than what we saw during his time at LSU, just given the fact that he was sharing targets so often with some of those other receivers. Neighbors, but 17 touchdowns this past year for Brian Thomas. I mean, this guy was absolutely dominant, and you know, I think finishing in the end zone is obviously a really good trait that you want in receivers. So a lot to like with Brian Thomas. Like I said, I think he could be a better pro than what we saw at LSU. So first round grades on them, on the Texas guys, and then I guess two other guys that I would mention. You know, maybe kind of more of that tweener territory of like maybe they could sneak in under round one, but probably more realistically in early second round. Keon Coleman from Florida State, mentioned him briefly with the Jordan Travis talk. Didn't run a very fast 40, but just a really big sized receiver, can kind of go up and get it. You know, I think there was a little bit more hype around him going into the season. Didn't necessarily have as productive of a year as we thought, even though Florida State had a lot of success. And then Troy Franklin, the other receiver from Oregon, you know, had a you know, a little bit smaller frame, but you know, really good deep threat, caught a lot of touchdowns, good deep route runner. I think a lot of teams are looking to extend the field vertically, and a lot of times that can be kind of a trigger where you know, say the Kansas City Chiefs are there late, they need receiver help. They're like, all right, yeah, throw me a Troy Franklin if a lot of these receivers go early. But yeah, I think we could see up to, you know, 6-7 receivers go in round one, but maybe more realistically 4 or 5 with a lot of good talent still available on day two.
They're fast. They fast.
They are very fast.
Yeah, but some about these LSU guys, I mean, it's hard, at least for me, it's hard not to see the comparison of the Jefferson Chase with the Thomas neighbors now, where I mean, obviously Jefferson and Chase came out in different drafts, but I mean, I think everyone in the world thought Chase was better than Jefferson at LSU. And then Jefferson comes out and is just
totally
blows the NFL out of the
way
water.
Back further from there with LSU, you had Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry.
Yeah,
I was just about to mention them.
So, sure. Whatever. I don't know what LSU's doing with these wide receiver duos, but they keep turning them out.
It's crazy.
Yeah, really good. You got any other wide receiver?
No. Who we kind of mentioned it in the quarterback. Who are kind of your guys that are getting overlooked when it comes to that receiver class?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few guys that kind of stand out for me. I think Xavier Legette may be kind of the common answer from South Carolina. Didn't have a lot of production, but what production he did have, you're like, whoa, this guy is explosive. He's taking short plays and he's taking them deep. So, you know, he was catching passes from Spencer Rattler this year, and they developed a little bit more chemistry than we saw most of his time in college. Ladd McConkey is a really interesting one from Georgia. Kind of reminds you of that like Hunter Renfrow type mold when he actually had that one good year for the Raiders, but just a smooth route runner, can make things happen after the catch as well. So some things to like with his game. And then probably my favorite sleeper in this draft is Malachi Corley, smaller school player, came from Western Kentucky, came out 1 year early, but was just incredibly productive, kind of projects as more of that kind of smaller slot receiver, which, you know, I think that some teams, you know, I think we're seeing more often where teams are going to those 3 or 4 wide receiver sets in the NFL. And I think that gives Corley a little bit more of an opportunity to get on the field early as kind of that wide receiver 3. You know, I think about a team like the Eagles that may be interested in targeting Corley on day 2 of the draft. You know, having an AJ Brown, having a Devontae Smith already out there, you're kind of looking for that wide receiver 3. And I think Corley is a little bit under the radar, but was very productive during his time at Western Kentucky, caught a lot of touchdowns and just caught a lot of passes. Just a smooth route runner, good hands that I think is being overlooked a little bit due to his size and small school at Western Kentucky too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ladd McConkey, I like the comps. Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, Hunter Renfrow, maybe an Adam Thielen. You know, just
Cooper DeJean if he played offense.
That's a perfect segue because my next question was going to be. I mean, obviously we spent so much time looking at wide receiver and quarterback. Who do you think is going to be the first defensive player taken off the board? Is it going to be secondary DeJean or Wiggins, or will it be one of the edge rushers? Who do you see, or even Byron Murphy from Texas? Who do you have as the first defensive player coming off the board?
Yeah, it's a really good question because it's not as top loaded. Like you said, the linebacker class is not super strong. The safety class is not super strong. Even interior defensive linemen and corners, I think they're more kind of mid first rounders. So I think the strongest defensive class is the edge rushers. Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, Laiatu Latu from UCLA. I think those three guys probably have the best chance. My personal favorite is Dallas Turner from Alabama. Was a 5-star recruit. Started since his freshman year, or at least got some rotational minutes where he could come off the edge and make an impact. And then these last 2 years really popped off. Ran a 4.40 at 247 pounds. I mean, the athleticism is there, which is obviously a big check of what you want in a defensive player that goes first, of the bunch. So my personal favorite is Dallas Turner from Alabama, but I think he or Jared Verse would probably be the first defensive player taken in this year's draft.
Yeah. I mean, we're all Iowa fans here. Where did you have your ranking of Cooper DeJean, and what team would be a good fit for him, you think?
Yeah, for sure. I think this cornerback class is all kind of jumbled and bundled up. There's probably 5 guys that I have as potential first-round picks amongst the corners. Terrion Arnold and Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama, Nate Wiggins from Clemson, Quinyon Mitchell is a smaller school guy from Toledo, but certainly is going to be a first-round pick. And then there's DeJean as well, obviously. I think coming off an injury, as unfortunate as it is, that obviously just kind of knocked your draft status. So, and it's Iowa. Like, I'm not sure that everyone's going crazy in a draft room if, say, they're in the LA Rams. They're like, we need Cooper DeJean. I hope so, but I'm not so sure that I'm sold of that. So I'm optimistic that he goes in the first round. I think there is obviously potential that he slips into round 2 for sure as well. But I think that DeJean is good enough. He gives you special teams value, obviously, and was just a really good corner too. So I think that end of round 1 is probably a time when we could see it. A really fun fit that I'm, would love to see would be the Detroit Lions at 29. We know they love some Hawkeyes. Took a couple last year. So maybe he can re-team up with guys like Sam Laporta over there in Detroit, but I know they need a little cornerback help too. So I think that would be a fun fit for DeJean if he could go to the Lions. But I think probably like the Midwest teams like the Vikings, the Packers, the Lions, those are kind of teams that I think would kind of be in that territory where they could take a Cooper DeJean because like I said, some of these other guys are Quinyon Mitchell and Nate Wiggins, more athletic profiles that you typically get in cornerbacks. And for right or wrong, I think that's going to be something that maybe works against DeJean a little bit. But I think he's obviously going to make a day 1 impact on special teams and probably as a starting cornerback in year 1 too.
Yeah. And of course, we got to talk about, does Tory Taylor get drafted?
I mean, if there was ever a year, this would be the year for a punter to go. Like, I'm gonna guess no, but who knows? We've seen like kickers go in the 3rd round with Jake Moody for the Niners. So like, who knows? We need a punting is winning NFL team. I'm not so sure who's doing that. I don't think there's any Brian Ferentz coordinated offenses in the NFL at this point, thankfully. But I don't know if anyone's valuing a punter enough to give him a pick. But hey, if there was a guy to go in the 7th round, it would be Taylor, and you lock up your special teams value for the next 10 15 years.
Hear me out. It's got to be the Steelers. It's got to be the Steelers. Bad offense, the same color, basically the same jersey. I mean, it just works too well.
Yeah,
it just works too well.
A lot of 3-and-outs with Russell Wilson coming up. I can guarantee you that.
And then when that doesn't work, they go to Justin Fields. Right. So yeah, it'll be. I need him to go to the Steelers. Absolutely.
I love that. Yeah. Kicking in Heinz Field too, or whatever it's called now. It's always kind of the winds are swirling. You get some long kickoffs. Maybe
there you go.
A little bit too. So I'm sold on Pittsburgh getting our guy Troy Taylor. Punting is winning. Get those shirts printed in Steel City.
They could just take the black and gold ones that were in Iowa City and send them up to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh man.
Yeah. So obviously we've had guys like Brock Purdy. Nobody thought he was going to be worth the shit in the NFL. Who is kind of you kind of mentioned who one of your sleepers is, but do you have any that is being massively overlooked? Not a lot of people are even predicting him to even get drafted. Who's kind of your guy that is going to be that Mr. Irrelevant in this draft class?
Yeah, I think this running back class to me is really fascinating because there's no Bijan Robinson, not even close. There might not be a running back picked on day one or day two. Maybe, third round, we're starting to talk of that area. But I think there are some guys that are going to make impacts. I think we've seen it in the last, 5, 10 years where a team just takes a shot on a third round or third day running back rather, and they end up being a pretty solid pro. And I think this running back class has a lot of potential candidates. But one guy I like Blake Corum from Michigan, but a little bit more under the radar. I'm going to say Missouri's running back Corey Schrader had a really good year. Missouri kind of sneakily was like a really good team this year, which kind of came out of nowhere a little bit. And Schrader was a big reason why. I know he actually ended up getting some Heisman votes as well. Obviously didn't win it, but just had a really strong year for Missouri. I think that he could kind of step in and be an NFL running back. Maybe even a starter with the right situation, the right team. If he ends up going late on day 3. So I think there's a handful of running backs in this class that catch my eye. I like Trey Benson, Bucky Irving. I think those may be among the earlier running backs that get picked. But Corey Schrader from Missouri, I think that would be an interesting pick. Running backs historically haven't been valued the most. Older running backs usually kind of get shy away from a little bit more tread on those tires. But I think when it's all said and done, when Corey Schrader gets picked, I think he's going to make an impact in the NFL next year.
Yeah,
I like it. Now let's look at the other side of the coin. Who is someone, if there is one, if there isn't, that's totally fair too. Yeah. But someone who the consensus is this guy is a first round draft pick and you just don't see it. You're just like, what are people seeing where this guy's going to go in the first round?
Yeah, I think the obvious answer for me on that is going to look at the offensive lineman, and it is a strong offensive tackle class. I really like Joe Alt or Fashanu from Penn State is really good. Latham from Alabama. I think there's a lot of good offensive linemen, but once you start getting a little bit deeper, there's a prospect on here that I just don't see it with, and that's Armarius Mims from Georgia. And I think offensive linemen, when we're looking at him, the first question we ask is, how big are you? And sure. Armarius Mims is big. This guy is 6'8", 340. He's huge. He can move. But the problem, what I'm not seeing in Mims that other people are when they just broadly look at this guy at a pro day is he only started 8 games at Georgia. He really just did not get out there on the field all that much. And I think that, there's just a little bit of raw, like I'm just kind of scared. I'm like, there's kind of a mystery box here where I'm like, okay, it could end up working pretty good. He's got these mold where, he kind of projects as this size, but had a lot of injuries. He hurt his hamstring during the combine running around. He had a high ankle sprain during the year this year at Georgia. Didn't have like a ton of negative plays, but I'm just kind of a little bit like, is this guy actually that good, or is he just big and just showed up on a Georgia team and they were able to just continue to execute? So I think Armarius Mims for me, he probably goes in round 1. Teams are going to take shots on guys with that size and that movement, but just given the lack of what we've seen out there on the football field, I'd be very concerned with taking Mims on a first round pick, especially if it was my team. I'd be like, oh man, like, is this really the best player available, or are we just kind of banking on upside, which a lot of times teams fall in love with on draft day, but they can kind of fizzle out within a couple of years.
Yeah,
no doubt. Got anything else?
Blinded for your overhyped prospect. I love it. So you're unfortunately an Eagles fan, but who are you wanting your Eagles to take a shot at in this draft?
Yeah, for sure. I think they need some help on the offensive line. It's historically been a position they've really valued in Howie Roseman's time. Obviously, Jason Kelsey's retirement is a big storyline, but I think the nice part is that I don't think they desperately need a center. They've taken some centers in the last couple of drafts and a couple of years that I think can fill in, whether it be a Landon Dickerson, who they just extended from Alabama, or even Cam Jurgens, who they took out of Nebraska a couple of years ago. So I think they're more kind of looking out. Lane Johnson's not getting any younger, and they got Jordan Mailata on the other side. So I think they want to kind of take a little bit more of a flexible interior offensive lineman. And Troy Fautanu from Washington started most of his games at tackle for Washington, but has a little bit of flexibility to move inside too. He's about 6'4", so maybe a little bit under the ideal size threshold that you want in an offensive tackle, but I think he would be a really good fit for the Eagles. Has ability to be coached by one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL with Jeff Stoutland. So I think that offensive line would be a really strong target for the Eagles this year, and then they can address their other needs like the secondary or the off-ball linebackers, the defensive linemen, kind of in the later parts of the draft, maybe a wide receiver 3. But I think they've historically really valued the offensive line early in drafts, and Fautanu may even be a guy that they're so interested in that they could trade up a couple spots into the late teens and sacrifice a 4th-round pick just to make sure that they can grab him, because it's a deep offensive tackle class. I could see him falling a little bit because of his size, and where the Eagles are at 22, I think that could be a player they could be all over.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question. Which player, which is like the consensus, one of the best talents in the draft, will start falling because they smoked weed in sixth grade one time, or they drove 5 miles over the speed limit when one time a week before draft day, and then the Eagles inevitably trade up and
Right.
take them like 9 spots behind their projected draft spot. Because it happens like 3 years in a row now, which is getting really irritating.
Yeah, we love Jalen Carter. I'll tell you that. He's
Yeah,
out in Philly, and he's wrecking interior offensive linemen. So we got no complaints with that.
Think the Bears could use him?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that's for sure.
Selfishly, as a Cowboys fan, I'm curious, where do they go? Obviously, the running joke is they did absolutely nothing when the free agents came out. Didn't go after Derrick Henry, even though he mentioned that would have been the perfect fit. Didn't re-sign Tony Pollard. Micah Parsons missing. And CeeDee Lamb missing open training camp. So a lot of concerns for the Cowboys, but where do you think they go in this draft?
Yeah, I think historically they've really valued productive athletic players from big time schools. I think those two Texas receivers would definitely be of interest to them, either AD Mitchell or Xavier Worthy. I could see them wanting to kind of bolster up that offense just a little bit more. They've tried so much with Dak Prescott to surround him with so much talent, and I know he likes working the middle of the field with those tight ends as well. But I think giving him another option outside of CeeDee Lamb, who was just their entire offense, it felt like at stretches last year. I think that would be something that they would be interested in. I don't know if Brian Thomas will necessarily fall to them where they're at 24, but I think AD Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, those are kind of the two guys that I have in mind that I could see Dallas staying in state and grabbing one of those guys. Mitchell, a little bit better size, Worthy maybe a little bit more flash, a little bit more flair, the Jerry Jones kind of mold of, let's just grab the fast guy and we'll figure out the rest later. So I think that's kind of what I would be thinking, for Dallas. They've invested obviously a lot in the O-line, took a first round pick last year with Tyler Smith. So I think wide receiver is a spot that they could look to add at.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with whoever the running back room is. Deuce Vaughn.
Rico Dowdle.
Rico Dowdle, of course.
Yeah.
But any more questions for Ryan, man?
I think we covered most of it, man. I mean, I this is the first time in a while that I'm actually I'm usually locked in for the draft. It's an awesome week, as you said, but specifically, I mean, the Vikings' future is very much hanging in the balance of this draft, and that is not something I have said a lot recently. So I'm excited to not have the inevitable, late teens, early 20s pick of just a random defensive player. Sometimes you'll hit on a Jordan Addison or a Justin Jefferson, which is quite nice. But being able to be in the mix up top and looking at the QB position is pretty exciting. For sure.
I would say so. And I think chances are good, Tanner, they pick a quarterback better than Kellen Mond worked out for him. So I'm optimistic for you there.
Oh, God. Yeah. Kellen Mond or the kid from BYU, Jaron Hall, or any of those fifth-round quarterbacks they take a stab at.
A real guy here this time.
Turns out they might stink. That's why they're fifth-round draft picks.
Yeah. What a surprise.
Who was shocked to hear that? But thank you so much for coming on, man. We really appreciate it. I mean, what an awesome week. Awesome breakdown. I'm just so excited for Thursday.
Yeah, absolutely. It's best. Make sure to hop over to his podcast, Rody on the Horn. They do a great job over there. Very similar vibes. A lot more hockey. Obviously, Stanley Cup is just in the thick of it right now. First round going on. So I got to ask, you're a big hockey guy. Who do you got Stanley Cup finals? Who you got bringing it home?
Well, I will say my co-host over there at Rody on the Horn, my good buddy Donnie, also a New York Rangers fan, so I got a little love for the Rangers and the blue shirts.
That dude knows puck.
An early hot start, a potential second round matchup with the Carolina Hurricanes coming up. That'll be a big must.
Don't count out the Islanders now.
Yeah,
they were up 3-0 earlier.
Yeah, they're a scrappy bunch. They could sneak a couple.
They were up 3-0 in game 2. I don't know if that game's over or what's going on, but that's a 1-1 series heading back to New York. So.
Sure. don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but I do like the Rangers. But my cup pick, I go with the Dallas Stars this year. I just think this is an incredibly deep team. Some young talent too. They got a couple rookies on their team that have made really big impacts for them this year. Wyatt Johnston is a really fun center for them, and they got a hell of a goaltender too in Jake Ottinger, which is really important. But they got a tough series too. They got Vegas, the defending Cup champs, who are adding their captain Mark Stone back too. So a lot of good hockey coming up here over the next 2 months. I'm excited for it, but I did pick Dallas over Carolina as my Cup final pick for this year.
All right, we'll keep that in mind. So if it turns out to be completely wrong, we'll come cloud you.
Once Dallas gets swept, you can yell at me. It's okay.
There you go. But Ryan, thank you so much, man. Really broke it down for us, gave us real insight. Because I know for me, I can't speak for Tara. We don't go in depth as you, and I knew you did the big board. So we appreciate you coming on and breaking it down, and hope to have a fun Thursday and couple days for the NFL draft.
Yeah, it's always a fun week. Everybody tunes into Detroit, Michigan, which is kind of an interesting situation for this week. But NFL draft's always a ton of fun. Thanks so much for having me on, guys. I love talking draft, but if you ever want me back on, happy to do it. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man.
See you guys. Thanks.
And now we welcome on our second guest of the episode, Brandon Martelli, a good friend of mine, and we are here to talk some NBA ball. We are a few games into the first round, some pretty exciting finishes. I think last night, we're recording this on Tuesday, Monday night possibly was the best finish in a night of games I've ever seen in the NBA playoffs, even in some of the hockey playoffs too, with that Islanders-Panthers game, or Islanders-Hurricanes game. But anyway, back to basketball. Brandon, how are we doing today?
Oh, we're doing good, man. It's good to be on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So yeah, we're just going to go series by series, talk about, kind of give an update how things are looking, what's played out so far, and keys to victory for each team. Will the away team, because the away team has yet to win a game in any series thus far, do they have a chance to come back and win? That type of stuff. So we'll start out east, and we will go in numerical order. So we'll start with the 1-8 Celtics Heat. I mean, my question is there anything to talk about here? I think we're all in agreement. If there is a way the Heat can turn this around, Brandon, how would that possibly work? Or is it hope everyone on Boston gets injured?
I mean, yeah, like there's, Boston was good enough as it was last year. Considering that Miami, even though Miami beat them last year, like when you add Drew Holiday in itself, like a true point guard that the Celtics needed, like that's enough as it is. And then you add Porzingis, who I think has been like their biggest player all year. Like he's had a great, very underrated season. There's a lot of good big men out in the East, so he's not really gonna get the all-star recognition that he probably had when he was, with the Knicks, 5-6 years ago. But that's a huge. Those are two huge pieces right there. And Miami, sadly, from last year, like where they are now, the Celtics added big, and with Jimmy Butler going down, Miami really didn't do much to keep their, to get their chances up this year. So with Jimmy Butler down, it's a tough season, tough matchup to even play.
Yeah, I mean, the Heat, I feel like they had a really tough offseason. Not only did they not really add, they lost Max Strus, who was a huge part in that run last year, and Gabe Vincent even as well, a huge part for that Heat team. So I totally agree. I mean, especially with Jimmy Butler, you needed playoff Jimmy to show up in a big way to win the series. Obviously, the injury kind of knocked that out. So not much to do there. But anyway, we'll move on to the next series, 2-7. My Knicks, baby, they are up 2-0 on the 76ers, and we witnessed an all-time finish in Game 2. I mean, we got to talk about this series right now, of course. 2 good games, but the Knicks are up 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, I think the craziest thing, the biggest takeaway is the Knicks are getting it done without Jalen Brunson being his normal self. I mean, he shot 8 for 29 last night. I think he shot worse Game 1, and yet they're still getting it done somehow, some way. It's basically, but if you look on the other side, it's Tyrese Maxey versus everybody. Joel Embiid hasn't been playing his MVP caliber self. I mean, he had 34, but it wasn't the usual dominant performance we see from Embiid. But that's kind of my biggest takeaway from this series so far.
Yeah, I think my big takeaway from this series so far is like Tobias Harris, dude, you got to show up, man. Like, you got to play. Like, where are you, dude? Like, I know Tanner. We've had a lot of talks. I've always told you I'm a very big Tobias Harris fan, and like he goes through these stretches. He has some games where he'll have like 30 points, and we're like, all right, yeah, this is like the Tobias Harris potential we saw when he was on the Clippers, and then he's has a lesser role now that he's the third, maybe even fourth man on the Sixers team, and he had like 10 points yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, we're not, I know the Sixers aren't asking for, 30 points a game. It's hard to have three guys scoring 30, but he's got to do something, man. Like, he was like 4 for 12, I think, from the field, like 1-3, like not even getting like, I don't know, like at least he's getting rebounds, but that's my big thing is for the Sixers. Like, they want to try to turn this around. You gotta get that third guy going. And it can't be like Nick Batum. It's gotta be Tobias Harris.
Yeah, right. I mean, the entire supporting cast for the Sixers, Tobias Harris, namely, started off because he has, as you said, he has that skill to be a third option. He's certainly making the money to be a third option. And yeah, he's been nowhere. And I mean, the rest of them, like Buddy Hield, like, seems like he should have been a good depth piece for Philly. I mean, great shooting. Where he been? He scored his first points in his playoff career last night, and he finished with 2. So he made a layup off a loose ball that fell to his lap. Yeah, I mean, the supporting cast, Tobias Harris had 10 points in game 2 on 4 for 11 shooting. And in game 1, he had, I pull it up, he had 7 points on 3 for 7. So a combined 17 on 7 for 18 shooting. That's just not good enough. That's just not good enough. So we know the Sixers now down 2-0. What do they need to do to turn this around? Other than, is it just as simple as get the supporting cast going? I know you mentioned rebounding is a big thing. How do they turn this around?
I think for starters, I mean, I don't know if Tanner, how you're gonna feel about this, but like the refs could call the right game. Like the Knicks, I guess they need all the help they can get right now. Like, I don't know if you saw earlier today, they checked the last 2-minute report, and they were like, yeah, Josh Hart, and I think they said Brunson fouled on that last possession. So what the Sixers need, I guess, is the refs to be unbiased.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a shame because if they called that on Maxey, then Brunson would have had about 46 fouls called against him, because that's exactly how they play defense on Brunson all game long. Nothing changes in the last 2 minutes. Also, the one they reversed on DiVincenzo when Lowry smacked him in the arm twice. They went to replay and then they took it off for some reason. And not to mention Tyrese Maxey 2-hand shoving Josh Hart to get open in that last play. And Nick Nurse did not call a timeout. That is an incorrect statement. When the ball was out of bounds, he clearly pump faked it. He clearly was thinking about it. Didn't do it. And then when he finally called a timeout, Tyrese Maxey did not have possession of the ball. So I think Nick Nurse deserves a lot of blame, because they try to get in quick, and as soon as that happens, he needs to be yelling, screaming, timeout, timeout, timeout. He wasn't, and his indecisiveness cost him a game. Also, they're rebounding, because the refs did not, as I said earlier in the episode, the refs did not let Isaiah Hartenstein get an offensive rebound. The refs did not miss a free throw for Kyle Lowry. That would have made it a 6-point game. The refs did not smoke a layup by Tyrese Maxey, and the refs did not fail to get a 3-point attempt off after they were down. So that's all I have to say about that.
I love it. I love it.
Yes, but you'd think that in Phillies fans do think the refs are against them, and you'd think that would probably turn around in Philly. And I am fully expecting a game where the refs just have to right every wrong they think they made, even though they didn't make any wrong in the first place. But so I'm fully expecting a game that is pro Philly on the ref side of things. But anything else other than the refs calling a game, because I mean, it feels like Brunson shooting as poorly as he did, Philly's got to come out with one of those games.
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to Philly, obviously, it's gonna be they're gonna, Philly fans show up when it's especially during playoff time. So they'll definitely have that home court advantage, But just as the Knicks do when they play, at the Garden, that place is electric when you see it. So I'm sure, like you said, yeah, the refs are definitely gonna probably be, leading towards the Sixers trying to make up a game here because that especially after the whole debacle, the final minute last game. But I mean, even without Randall, the way the Sixers are made right now, I don't see the way they come back. I could see them getting one, while they're home, but besides that, I think it's Knicks in 5.
All right, I like the sound of that. We didn't lock in an official prediction for Celtics Heat. I assume that's Celtics in 4.
Well, Celtics 4 easy.
Celtics in 4. All right. Got it. Nice and easy there. So we'll move on to the next series. Bucks Pacers. Game 2 is going on as we speak. The Pacers currently hold a 1-point lead, 35-34, with 10 minutes left in the second quarter. Bucks up 1-0 in the series. They kind of dominated game 1. Talk to me.
I mean, I have a good friend who's a Pacers fan, and he'll tell you that Tyrese Maxey is probably, best point guard in the league right now. But, I don't know if you guys, like, I was looking at it apparently after that play-in tournament when he really started turning heads. He's not playing like an all-star at all. He's playing like
Halliburton's struggling.
He's
just to be clear, big time.
Just to be clear, Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah, who'd I say?
Okay, I think you said Tyrese Maxey,
Nah,
but
same
Halliburton.
Good.
Same shit. Tyrese Halliburton. My bad. Yeah, Tyrese Halliburton. Ever since after that play-in game,
The in-season tournament.
In-season tournament. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think he said he's averaging like 15 points a game, something like that, like 5-6 rebounds, which I mean is a lot for a point guard, but like if the Pacers are going to succeed, like they need Halliburton to score the ball, and he's just not doing that.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And when you're facing Giannis and Dame, it's you especially need your big players to show up, and he has disappeared
For the whole second half of the season, it seems.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, big storyline in this series is the health of Giannis. It looks like he's missing his or is he playing today? I don't even know. It looks like he's missing his second straight game to start the series. So that obviously can play a big role down the stretch. So I mean, other than Halliburton getting it going, Brandon, I mean, can Indiana turn this around, or do you think this is done and dusted with Giannis seemingly a return on the horizon?
I wouldn't say it's over for Indiana. I think without Giannis, I think they kind of match up well with the Pacers. Like I mean with the Bucks. I think Halliburton's one of the, as much as he struggled, he still can play. He needs to, probably improve a little bit on the defensive end, considering how tall and lanky he is. But, they got Siakam, they got Miles Turner. Miles Turner's, one of the fringe all-star centers in my eyes for the past 3 years now. So, I wouldn't say, it's over for the Pacers. I think they have a chance, but they don't really have that go-to scorer right now, where it's like, you can give Dame the ball and Dame will, as long as he knows like it's his team, he'll put up 40 a game. Embiid and Maxey for the Sixers, they could put it up. Brunson could put it up. I don't really see a guy on the Pacers where it's like, let's give him the ball and let's let him cook. They just don't have that score, and I think that's what's going to hold them back in the series, personally.
No doubt. When you need a bucket, who is going to get it? Seemingly, it should be Tyrese Halliburton. Hasn't been in the second half of the series. So, to wrap up this series, do you see a comeback? You said they can. Will they?
Assuming, I'm going to go with no. They're not going to come back. Depending on if Giannis' availability, I'll say Giannis doesn't come back this series, or maybe towards the end. So I'm going to say I'll go Bucks in 6.
Bucks in 6. Got it. Now we'll wrap up the Eastern Conference with a 4-5 matchup. Cavaliers Magic. Cavs up 2-0 in this series, and they have dominated this series so far.
Yeah, absolutely dominant. two of the most boring games so far in the NBA playoffs. Absolutely, two very good defensive teams. So, but Cleveland honestly just has not let Orlando shoot the ball in the paint and forcing Orlando to shoot outside, and they've struggled. I know in the first game, the Magic's guards shot 0 for 17 from three. So that's never a recipe for success, especially in this day and age of the NBA. So Cleveland's rolling, and it's going to be interesting how Orlando bounce backs and if they do bounce back.
Yeah, I put in two futures a year. I do a Western Conference future and an Eastern Conference future every year before the season starts. And I did it last year. Responsibly, of course. Yeah, absolutely. And last year I put it on the Cavs to win it all. And I was mistaken there, but
they ran into the Knicks.
You faced the Knicks, all right. But I ran it back with them again this year. I am a huge Cavs fan. I think they got a great starting five, some decent bench pieces, and it's showing right now against Orlando, like a young, granted Orlando team, but you can see the experience that they somewhat have now with Donovan Mitchell taking the lead, Darius Garland, Jared Allen, Mobley. They've had that taste from last year, losing to the Knicks especially. They just have it. They have the scoring. They got the solid defense. I think Darius Garland's one of the best point guards in the league. I know he had kind of an off year this year. But I don't see any way the Magic come back personally. I know Paolo is good, but I don't think it's enough what the Magic have right now to stop the Cavs.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, right now the Magic have no offensive firepower whatsoever. 2 games in the 80s to start this season, start the series. Something to look out for. I know Orlando is a pretty good defensive team, but Cleveland thus far 2 games not making 100. Next series, if they do go out and play Boston, which it seems like if both these series stay the way they are, that will be a likely matchup. And if that is the case, they're going to need to possibly score a little more points to beat that Boston team. But yeah, it seems like they're on cruise control now. It is going to Orlando. Anything can happen. But yeah, right now that series seems to be on cruise control. As you said, you don't think you don't see a way Orlando comes back. I need the official prediction.
Official prediction. I'll give it a gentleman's sweep. I'll go Cavs in 5.
Got it.
Orlando might take the last one.
Gentleman's sweep. Noted. All right. I mean, that's kind of where the Eastern Conference is sitting. Again, we mentioned no road team has won a game yet in these playoffs. So I'm curious, Brandon, who do you think is the first team that are going to be able to do that?
In the East or in general?
Just in general.
In general, I think it's happening right. It's going to happen right now. I think.
Oh, sure. Of course.
I think those Phoenix Suns,
those pesky Suns,
those Suns that
those great underdog story went on the road.
Totally. There's no bias here whatsoever, of course, but I think the Suns are going to take this one. I think they're going to take this one right now in Minnesota. I think.
All right, fair enough.
Book had a bad game Saturday. For 2 days rest. That's good for old man KD. They're gonna come back and they're gonna want it. It's a close game, but I see the Suns being the first team.
Nice. I like that. Again, we are a bias-free podcast.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with it between the Knicks 76ers talk and that the Suns talk there. Bias-free. But you heard it here. His predictions going a little crazy with the 1, 2, 3, and 4 all winning their series. All good, man. I mean, again, as we've said a million times, road team has yet to win. Underdog has yet to win. But who do you see coming out of this Eastern Conference? Do you think there's a team that can beat the Celtics? You mentioned your future on the Cavs. Will they get it done in the conference semifinals?
I have the future on the Cavs, but looking at it, I just don't think there's a way to stop Boston. The only thing stopping Boston right now is themselves. That's the only thing I can see.
Yeah, They're really good, believe it or not.
The one seed is really good.
The
Would've
one
thought-
seed is
would've thought the
really
best
good.
record was the best.
Really, really good, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, specifically the way the East is made, the makeup right now is the Celtics, a pile of crap, and then the rest of the rest of the field. But let's go out west. We will continue the trend here. We'll start with the 1-8 Sam's Oklahoma City Thunder in game one. They went down to the wire, able to win a close one against the Pelicans. I mean, this seems like this series could be a pretty fun one. I mean, do you guys notice anything in game one that stood out, or do we jump right to the outlook of the series? Sam, why don't you start with the Thunder guy?
Dort and Giddey need to do something on the offensive end. Obviously, Giddey has struggled kind of all year on the offensive end, more of a playmaking guard. Dort's known for his defense, but combined, they shot 3 for 12. You can't have that if you're playing 20 and 35 minutes. Got absolutely no help from the bench. Isaiah Joe, who's kind of been a solid piece, 2 for 5. Case and Wallace, 2 for 3 in just 19 minutes. But I mean, I feel like we should have beaten the Pelican. I mean, Brandon Ingram didn't have a great game. He had 12 points on 5 for 17. McCollum shot a very inconsistent 9 for 22. Trey Murphy, 21. I mean, it is a little concerning that the Pelicans kind of 2 stars didn't really play well, and they still kept it close. So a little concerning, but a dub's a dub, so I'm not going to complain too much.
So you're saying you don't have too much confidence going forward after the game one performance?
Yeah, and I think part of it, you got to take it with a grain of salt. This team is so unbelievably young. I think Gordon Hayward's the only guy over 27. So there's going to be some growing pains with this team, especially as a 1 seed, where people expect this team to go out and just beat teams by 30. And I don't think that's going to happen with this young talent.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I know they're the 1 seed. I'm not crazy about the Thunder. I didn't really, follow them all that closely this year. I know they're really, really fucking good. But if there's like one thing that I would say that I think the Thunder need is, that young team as it is. No, a lot of they're like one of the youngest teams like ever, especially to be a 1 seed. But like if you're gonna make it far here, I know he's not, what he used to be, but I think Gordon Hayward's got to play a bigger role as the one veteran on the team. He's got to, he's not saying, he's got to play 25, 30 minutes a game, but he's got to step up a little bit for the Thunder, because you need that veteran leadership, especially with a team this young, So that would be my big thing with the Thunder. And like, also, I think Jalen Williams, one of them, had a good game, but besides Shea, you need that second guy that's going to give you, 20, 25 points a game if you're going to be the Thunder, because, you gotta score to win the game, obviously. And I know they had a few guys, like Shea had 28, Jalen had 20. Besides that, you got like 15, Chet had 15, and then the rest are like 6-5 points throughout the rest. So you got to get that second, third guy in there that's gonna drop 20, 25 points a game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, secondary help. It's what a pro wants, what a pro needs, is what I'm hearing. But so, I mean, we talked a little bit on the Thunder side. Let's switch to the Pelicans here. I mean, obviously, heartbreaker in game one, no Zion. We mentioned the shooting woes from where it seems like most of their offense is going to come from with Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum. What do you need to see from the Pelicans here as the series continues?
Well, Tanner, if you remember, whenever we would talk, last year,
he's the best player.
This year, I made a list of who's the best player in the NBA. Do you remember who I said was the best player in the NBA?
Brandon Ingram.
Yeah,
best
player in the NBA. From every time I see him, best player in the NBA. So, like, for starters, he's got to go play like the Brandon Ingram that I saw that whole series against the Suns, 2 years ago. Or like the Brandon Ingram when I watch when he plays the Suns or whoever, what other team I watch, he's unstoppable. He's like, he had those comps when he was young to KD, and whenever I bet against him, that's how he plays. So he needs to start playing like that all the time. So there's that. CJ McCollum, he's as crazy as it is now because I still remember like when he first came to the league. He's like, the veteran on their team now too, with Valanciunas as well, maybe. So like he's got to take charge there a little bit. This is, the Pelicans' first time in the playoffs. They've been here a few times already as under Willie Green. So they need to all, they need better scoring from their stars, is what I would say. I know CJ at 20, that's enough as it is, but Ingram's got to step up. And then, you also got to, whoever did it, you got to feel bad for whoever wanted Zion hurt out there. They're missing him a lot in this series.
Yeah, I mean, it's par for the course at this point with Zion, Embiid, all these guys. When it comes playoff time, they're going to be battling an injury. Some small enough that they can push through, and some will keep them on the shelf for the entire series. For the record, we were talking about our best players in the NBA. There was a game, must have been in like February, late in the series, like at this point 3 years ago. It was between the Knicks and the Magic. I watched it, and Terrence Ross went unconscious, where he made like 6 straight threes, all contested, all incredibly tough shots, all off the bench. He had like 40 in the game. From that moment on, Terrence Ross has been the best player in the NBA in my eyes. So his is Brandon Ingram, mine is Terrence Ross. But yeah, that's how that goes. But should be a good series between the 1 and 8, potentially spot for an upset there. Who do you have winning the series? Will it be Sam's Oklahoma City Thunder, or are they just too young?
They are very young, and it kills me to do this, but I got the Thunder in like 5. Without Zion, I don't think so, bro. I don't think there's a chance. I think that's a huge loss for the Pelicans right there. And if Ingram's going to keep playing the way he is, then I don't know. Thunder, they're just too young. They can sub in and out as they please, basically, and have the same guy. Basically, like I just think the Thunder, they have too many weapons to the Pelicans' diminishing weapons.
Interesting, because I do think the Thunder win the series, but the in 5 is interesting, especially after Game 1 win. But you think the Thunder can take this series by the horns and really put the Pelicans to bed. Interesting stuff. So we'll move on to the 2-7 Nuggets Lakers. I mean, this is just getting comical at this point. At this point, I have made so much money responsibly by betting the live betting on the Nuggets when they inevitably fall down by 10 or 12 to the Lakers, and they always win the game. That is now 10 in a row for the Nuggets over the Lakers. They have a 2-0 lead. It was the nightcap of the night I referenced earlier with the best games in the NBA slate. It was a Jamal Murray buzzer beater after a crazy back and forth game. The Nuggets erased a 20-point lead. Lakers, again, seems like they showed up in Denver, outmanned, outgunned, and they put together 2 pretty impressive games, and they're down 2-0 in the series.
Yeah, I mean, those were even Game 1. I know they lost by, I think they ended up losing by what, like 11 or something like that. Yeah. Game 1, but even that game, they were in it the whole way. Like, I know LeBron's getting old, but dude, the way he's playing some of these games, like he's just as good as he was. And it's just like, I honestly, like, I don't know what you need to do to stop Nikola Jokic at this point and the Nuggets. Like, I don't know what else he can do, to be honest with you. Like, they're 80, LeBron, 80, and I think last game, D'Angelo Russell, like, they all played well. And obviously, there's a buzzer beater there to win the game, but it's the Lakers are the Nuggets are reigning champs for a reason. And I think it's been showing the first 2 games.
Yeah, turns out the Nuggets pretty good, pretty well coached, pretty disciplined as the in crunch time. But it's just got to be devastating if you're the Lakers, right? You play 2 games, you think you're in both, and you somehow lose both. In the last in Game 2 being in such devastating fashion as it was. I mean, do the Lakers have hope here? Like the fact that they were in those two games, is it enough to instill hope in the players and the fan base, or do you think it's just crushing, just too soul crushing, and they just kind of fade away here?
Whenever you have LeBron James, doesn't matter what the series is at. I always think you have a chance.
It's true. Okay.
And then 80's had a incredible season. Like I don't think it's talked enough how good he was this year. And even this series, like he had 30, 32 last game.
Yeah.
Like he's been playing well, and they need him to step up. I think D'Angelo's gonna have his buckets, and LeBron's gonna get his. Obviously, D'Angelo's gonna get 80's gonna get his, but the Lakers are gonna do this. They need I don't even know, Austin Reeves maybe. Like they need somebody to step up. They need that. They need a fourth guy. He doesn't have to score 25 points a game. Like that would be impressive if they had four guys scoring over 20.
Yeah.
But I think their starters. I think Rui had 3 and Austin Reeves had 9, and then they had 6 bench points last game.
Yeah.
I know it's you go somewhat of a shorter bench obviously in the playoffs, but your starters aren't gonna it's not like Austin Reeves is out there for a defensive specialist. He's out there to put up some points, and 9 points isn't gonna win you a series against the Nuggets. Neither is 3 from Rui. Somebody's got to go out there and score double digits besides LeBron, AD, Russ.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Especially as he said, LeBron's getting up there in age. He's not. I mean, he is that guy still, but he plays a different game. He's not your freak athlete. He can't just take over a game as dominant as he used to. Anthony Davis probably played one of the most impressive games I've seen him play all season. And everyone on the broadcast was talking about how well he played against Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic had double-double at the end of the first quarter, I believe. And he finished with 27, 10, and 20. Oh, so he's just unstoppable, and pair him with Jamal Murray. It's an unbelievable duo, the best duo in the league. And I just don't know what you do if you're the Lakers.
Yeah. I mean, I got nothing else to add. Nothing else to add whatsoever. So I need the prediction. How many games?
I gotta feel like I've been going 4 or 5, basically everything. So, I mean, it's hard. I think the Nuggets are really fucking good. But I think the Lakers are gonna go home. LeBron's gonna show up. I'm gonna go Nuggets in 6. I think the Lakers take at least 1, if not 2, when they go back to LA now, and then Nuggets take it from there.
Nuggets in 6. I like it. So now we're going to move on to one. We talked a little bit about it earlier. Not going so well from the prediction side of things. We have the 3-seed Timberwolves taking on the 6-seed Suns. For those of you, I don't know if you've gotten a glimpse of Brandon's sweatshirt yet, but he is a big-time Phoenix Suns fan, and he is off to a rough start in this series. He predicted they're going to win. They are currently down double digits in the fourth quarter. Anyway, the series is 1-0 Minnesota. Might be 2-0 Minnesota. Brandon, what's going wrong? Talk me through this from the Suns side of things.
You know what's going wrong? I can't remember the date. It was in the off season. What went wrong to start the offseason was I love, our new owner. It's great that he's here, especially after the owner we had, previously. Matt Ishbia is doing a great job. But what went wrong was they hired Frank Vogel in the offseason. So there's that. That's one big thing. Number 2 is, I've always been a fan of his. I've been a fan of his since he was Florida, because I used to be a very big into the Gators and all sports. I understand that Chris Paul gave us nothing really towards the end, but I don't think the Bradley Beal trade was it. To be totally honest, I know we're kind of going way back here. This isn't really playoffs, but I think we made 2 bad moves to start. I think you could have. I mean, I'm glad that we traded Ayton and got Al and got got Youssef, and we get these pieces, but I don't think this team is structured like is right. I just don't. Like I love Devin Booker. Point Book is good, but it's not great. And if you're gonna win a championship, like you need to be fucking great. And it's just not happening. Like we're fundamentally and structurally just not the championship team that a lot of these people thought we were in the preseason. I never saw it personally. When we got Beal, even after the All-Star break, it's like, oh, the Suns will turn it around. Like I've never seen it. I still have faith. As a Phoenix Suns fan, I have nothing but faith. But I don't know. I honestly I just don't know. I don't know what to say. It's bad right now. It's not looking good.
In fairness to him, the second the Bradley Beal trade went through, he texted me and he said, I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. He knew from the beginning it wasn't a fit.
It doesn't make. I'm on the same boat. I just never understood that signing. You have three major dominant ball handlers with D-Book, KD, and Bradley Beal, and they've never played. KD, obviously, on the Warriors kind of had to play off ball, but he is still ball dominant. So it's just, I totally agree, Brandon. I think from that point, you're just like, what was this team?
Yeah,
It's go ahead.
It just seems like an opportunity cost move because you look at the trade, the Phoenix Suns gave up nothing to bring in Bradley Beal. So you're sitting there like, how could this be a bad trade? Well, here comes the saying, there's only one ball, right? There's only one ball. Also, you just took away the ability to sign any sort of depth. You tried to get some of it back when you traded Ayton, which I think was, as you said, Brandon, a great move to get Ayton out and bring in some other pieces of depth. But yeah, it's not looking good right now for the Suns. They're currently down 15.
18 turnovers.
Yeah. So sorry about that one, buddy. But
it's all right.
But
I know Sam just said it with the turnovers. You know what helps with limiting turnovers? Having a actual point guard on the team.
It's crazy how that works.
It's crazy. And who's, as much as I love him and his story was great. Like we could have had an actual point guard here, even on the bench, not even to start. But instead, we used our buyout spaces on like Thaddeus Young, who doesn't play. He's literally recorded, I think, like 60 minutes total since joining the Suns. We have Isaiah Thomas literally just for positive vibes. And like it doesn't fucking work. like you could have got like any fucking role-playing point guard, and you got Isaiah Thomas. And you got Thad Young. If this was like 2015, I'd be ecstatic. But it's not. It's and that, like, I understand we have no cap and this is what you got to do. But like, you have no cap because Matt Ishbia, like, I appreciate his efforts. He's just making big moves to make big moves. Obviously, my favorite player in basketball is Mikal Bridges. I understand the Kevin Durant trade, but like, you lost what the core of the Phoenix Suns were. Like that final team was Mikal, was Devin Booker, and what Cam Johnson was becoming. And you gave that away for KD, and I totally get it. But then you didn't fill the team around KD and Devin Booker with the right pieces. And it's showing right now. And it shows in literally every fourth quarter of the Phoenix Suns. Like, they have the worst fourth quarter, like, net efficiency, plus minus, like, whatever stats you want to use. And it shows. And when you play, we swept the Timberwolves in the regular season. That's great. I had tons of confidence. I said to a lot of people, I think that the Suns have the easiest matchup in all the playoffs right now. And now I feel like a fucking idiot. Because I was, I'd like to think I know sports. I clearly was fucking wrong. Although I guess I was right from the beginning, knowing that the Suns were systematically flawed.
Yeah.
And it's showing. Thank you for listening to my son's TED Talk real quick.
So he is not happy with the state of the Phoenix Suns currently. It looks like they're, in fact, going to lose game 2. So you said you got hope. is the hope, just because you know what, you got two, maybe three, depending on how you look at things, of the best basketball players in the world on your team. They need to start playing like it.
The hope is, at the end of the day, like, I got Devin Booker, I got Kevin Durant, I sometimes have Bradley Beal, and sadly, I don't have Grayson Allen, but that's okay because I got those three. And Bradley Beal, I get it. He was an all-star. He's a great player, but like he needs to step up. If we have this great big three, and a lot of people think this is one of the best big threes ever assembled, better than the Nets big three, better than the Heat big three, and whatever. Some people say that. If that's gonna be the case, then like Bradley Beal needs to start fucking playing like he's a big three member. Throughout, I know he's hurt through a lot of the season. He played a lot after like the All-Star break, but if you ask the Suns' big three, people might tell you it's KD, Booker, and Grayson Allen. Just the way the Suns are playing. And I know that sounds like a joke, but it's not. Sadly, that's true.
Yeah,
and that's just what the Suns are.
No doubt. So I mean, I need the prediction. How deep does the faith go?
The faith goes deep. The faith goes Suns in 7.
Suns in 7.
We're
All right.
going back to Minnesota. We're going back to Phoenix. We're gonna take the 2 because the Valley gets crazy. Maybe Drew Eubanks gets lost somewhere and we have to play somebody else. And the Valley is gonna fucking be crazy the next 2 games. And we're gonna take it home. We're gonna beat Minnesota in those Canadian Fox.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, well, I will say in the near future, Minnesota will definitely be celebrating the new era of football with a new quarterback. So maybe they'll be too busy to be dealing with the Timberwolves. But we do have breaking news. Brandon has picked his first upset. He's
Not
picked
biased.
it, and it does happen to be his favorite team.
They're currently getting beat by 18.
They're currently down 2-0. Back to a question we posed earlier about which road team would be the first to win a game. Right now, Indiana in the third quarter is leading Milwaukee by 7. So that could be interesting. We talked about no Giannis in that series, how that could play out. Indiana might be keeping things close before that series heads back to Indianapolis. But we do have one more series to talk about, and that is the Clippers and the Mavericks, because I got to tell you, I was one of the people. I was drinking the Mavericks Kool-Aid a little bit. No Kawhi in game 1, maybe. And boy, was I totally wrong. And the Clippers mollywopped the Mavericks in game 1. Game 2 here tonight. I mean, is there anything about game 1 you think worth chatting about here?
I mean, I think it's huge that James Harden, I feel like, finally had a good game. Like, he had what, 28, I want to say it was?
28, yeah.
Game 1, James Harden?
Oh, well, okay, yeah. But that's fair. But I think I know that he's had a few game 1s, but like, I don't know, dude. There's something about like it's almost like without Kawhi down, he was finally just like, it's time for me to step up. I think a lot of times James Harden, he's been trying to make it work wherever he's went. So he's very, he's not trying to score the 40 points like he used to in Houston the game. And he doesn't have to because he's got 3 all-stars basically beside him. If Russ ever kind of goes back the way he was. But it was big to see that, he could still fucking play. Like, he could still score. He doesn't need Kawhi. And the big thing too, I think that Zubac had 20, like that, like Kawhi's out. And, like I've been saying basically the whole time is you basically need 3 scores to score 20. And you don't have Kawhi, who was that constant 24 to 28 point per game scorer. That Zubac comes in and drops 20 on like in his time. That's a great contribution from someone who you don't think of as a very key player when it comes to the Clippers.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about the supporting cast with Philly, certainly with Phoenix. When do these guys step up? I mean, without Kawhi, the the Clippers did exactly that. Yeah, I do think it is worth mentioning. Obviously, James Harden was excellent in game one. I do remember was it last year against the Celtics when he had like a crazy game. He had like 40, I think, and they won game one, and then he went right back to being playoff James Harden. But Kawhi seems to be back, and it seems like vibes are pretty good in LA. I mean, you look at the Mavs side of things. I don't know exactly what happened, but there was a lot of love on the Mavs, myself included, and they just seemed like they just came out and laid an egg.
Yeah, I mean, this whole episode, it seems to be about this supporting cast. Look at the Mavs supporting cast. Obviously, Kyrie and Luka are gonna get theirs. They do every game. Their three other starters had a total of 14 points. Jones Jr. went 0 for 4. Gafford, he did go down. But it's Daniel Gafford, not the biggest piece in the world. And PJ Washington only had 11 on 4 for 10 shooting. And then you go down the bench and it's just as bad. Maxi Kleber 1 for 5. Tim Hardaway Jr. 2 for 5. Derek Lively 1 for 3. Dante Exum 1 for 4. Just not a lot of help coming to Kyrie and Luka's aid. And it was a tale of two teams. And the Clippers got the help when one of their big players went down, and Mavericks had 2 versus 5.
Yeah, I mean, seems to be the story of the playoffs right now. I mean, game 2 tonight. Who do you like in game 2? And do you think that Dallas has a chance to turn things around here?
You know, I mean, I definitely think Dallas has a chance to turn it around, but Kawhi's back. Kawhi's playing today, or at least he's available today. So
that is true. That's a true statement.
You know, Kawhi's back, and the Mavs didn't add anybody since game 1. So I find it, I would find it shocking if the Clippers didn't come away with this win this series. Personally,
yeah, I think I agree with that. I mean, we're right back to the favorites. It's all right. It's all right. I mean, they haven't lost a game yet, as we have said multiple times. So you said you got the Clippers. How many games?
I mean, with Kawhi coming back, assuming he comes back fully healthy, I think Dallas will take one when it goes back to Dallas. They got good vibes going over there. I would say I'm going to say Clippers in 6. I think Luka's going to just have one of those games where it's 40-point triple-double. Maybe, all these trade acquisitions they made actually, at the trade deadline, do something, give them some depth. And I think that, they're a very good coach team, very well coached team with Jason Kidd. I think that they'll take 1 or 2 from the Clippers, but ultimately it's the Clippers series to lose. And they're not going to.
All right. So that's the first round looking at this. I mean, I asked this question on the Eastern Conference side of things. Let's look on the West. Who do you like to come out of the West and play the Celtics in the finals?
So I know that I probably don't have my Eastern Conference, future that I had. The team going to win that one in the East and the Cavs, but my future that I put on before the year, and I still feel pretty confident about right now, is the Los Angeles Clippers. I think that it's the Clippers thing on paper, and the way that they showed out in game 1. Obviously, it's a lot of games left. They're gonna make it to the finals, but I think the Clippers can match up pretty well against the Nuggets, and I think it's gonna be Nuggets Clippers personally in the Western Conference Finals, and I think the Clippers take it, and they go on to they're going to face the Celtics.
Damn.
That's pretty interesting. So you've got obviously in the Western side of things, you've got Thunder Clippers. You got the Clippers in that one.
Yeah.
Then you said Suns Nuggets. You got the Nuggets in that one.
Probably.
you just said.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, we'll see. That one's up in the air.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nurkic versus Jokic. It can be matchup of the
Yeah.
Oh
century.
yeah,
Well, the thing that's a big revenge game for Yusef if he gets there, man. And then
yeah.
it's like we don't want you, we want Nikola. Who knows? Yusef Nurkic could be 2-time MVP if they stuck with him.
Who knows?
Who knows? So he's
knows?
gonna have a big chip on his shoulder.
Who is
Yeah.
saying that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you never know.
You
Never know.
you never know. So then Eastern Conference, Celtics, Cavs. You already said the Celtics, Bucks, Knicks.
We're gonna be friends no matter what I say, right?
We will be friends no matter what you say.
Yeah, the Bucks take that one.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. All good. And then obviously you said Celtics over the Bucks. Celtics,
Yeah.
Clippers, the battle of the seas. Who wins the finals?
I mean, on paper, it's gonna be it's closer than you think, at least in my opinion. But it's tough. You know, obviously Celtics are probably favored still, but I think the Celtics are gonna, you know, as they've been doing for quite some time now, they're gonna find a way to choke it. And I think the Los Angeles Clippers be holding up to Larry O'Brien at the end of the day.
Interesting.
Wow.
You got the Clippers winning it all. MVP Kawhi again? Question mark.
Just
play?
because I'm assuming, no, MVP is gonna be PG-13.
MVP PG-13.
MVP PG-13.
Playoff P making a huge run for the Clippers. That about wraps it up for the NBA postseason recap / projection show. I don't know, but that was our NBA talk. I mean, thanks so much for coming on, Brandon. I mean, we really appreciate it talking through it. I know it seems like you got a little steam out on your sons there.
Yeah, there's yeah, I know, no free ads, but BetterHelp is gonna have a good time with me tomorrow after this game.
No free ads. No,
free
for
ads,
sure.
of course.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, man. We really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. This was tons of fun.
Another fantastic interview. We had Brandon on. It was fun. Hope y'all enjoyed that. Obviously, he had a couple rants in there that were legendary. But we're going to wrap it up with some questions. We got two here, Tanner, from Eric Godsey, multiple reoccurring guest, I should say. And he wants to know any special teams, special players, special plays so far in the NBA playoffs.
Wow, what a high quality comment there. I love it, or question, I should say.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I do think there are. I mean, special plays. You have the last 30 seconds of that Knicks 76ers game too. Of course, you have
Jamal Murray winner.
Jamal Murray game winner. Those stand out to me as special individual plays. Of course, they happen on the same night, believe it or not. But players, I mean, obviously, you got to start with Knicks Sixers. Knicks fan, of course. Josh Hart has been unreal to start this series for the Knicks. I mean, 100% the reason why they are 2-0 in that series. I mean, Anthony Edwards, we talked about him a little bit. I mean, his game one was unreal in Minnesota. So there's a lot to like here. James Harden had a great game one for the Clippers. I mean, we can go on and on. So the bottom line is, there are definitely special teams, special plays, special players going on in this NBA play.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one that's probably been the most impressive is Anthony Edwards. Wrapped up a 2-0 lead. So sorry, Brandon.
Yeah, did not get that one right.
Did not get that one right. But he was going back and forth with KD in that game one. Obviously, the viral clip of him talking shit to KD.
Yeah.
I obviously love it, but yeah, KD getting cooked by Ant was definitely one of my favorite plays. But that Jamal Murray game winner over the outstretched hand of AD obviously got to be up there. But definitely a lot of fun This next question also comes from Eric. We kind of touched on this with Brandon. I don't think we gave our opinion, but he wants to know, who do you have as a favorite to win the NBA Finals?
Yeah, I mean, we made jokes about it being chalky in our predictions with Brandon, but I mean, I just there's no one that can beat the Celtics, and when you had to beat them 4 times, it's just not going to happen. I got the Celtics coming out of the East, and I'm going to go with the Nuggets out of the West. Brandon went with the Clippers, interesting pick. I'm going to go with the Nuggets, and I think the Nuggets are going to take down the Celtics. So give me the Nuggies to go back to back.
Well, I thought we'd be a little different. Obviously, as a Thunder fan, number 1 seed, you gotta like where this team is heading. We touched on it with Brandon. I just think this team doesn't have the playoff experience.
Feels like 1 year too early.
One couple,
maybe 1 or 2 years too early.
Yeah, but I have the Celtics versus Nuggets. They have been the best teams all year. And I got the Nuggets going back. Nikola Jokic just is that dude. And it's his second job because he wants to be a horse guy. So.
He just wants to go home.
He just wants to go home.
He just wants to go. I mean, you know, I couldn't pick the Celtics. That's just nasty.
Yeah, that is disgusting.
Jokic MVP.
Dude, I don't know. Jamal Murray's been, if he keeps up what he's been doing these first 2 games, but it's hard to not go.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely even if Jamal Murray has moments like he did in game 2, the underlying stats are going to be Joker with 25, 12, and 10. Yeah, 25, 12, and 12, whatever it is. And I do think Joker wins the MVP. So damn, that's crazy. We have the same one. Sorry, we couldn't get more diversity up in here.
Yeah, but that wraps it up for the extra long episode for y'all. Episode 128. We know it is a long one. So if you're still around for this, we appreciate y'all more than ever. We decided to go a little long this one because we didn't have an episode last week. So hopefully y'all enjoyed it. Ryan came in with the NFL Draft Talk. Phenomenal interview there. Brandon coming in with the NBA playoffs talk. Another funny interview there. But the clock has run out on this one. But we'll see you on the next one on Crunch Time.
We'll see you.